All right, hi guys. My name is Sandy Samuel, and I'm here with Allison Beltran, Alexis Schroeder, and Marvin Wagner. And we are here to discuss some key takeaways that we ascertained by doing some interviews with some leaders in our communities, and then how we can kind of like incorporate what we learned through the discipline of organizational behavior. And so now we have Marvin, who will discuss some of the demographics of these leaders.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sandy, and good evening, everyone. Wanted to give you guys some interview data insights that we captured as we were doing our interviews. So we interviewed 13 managers, and the average age was 45 years of age, and the range of experience was between 7 and 32 years. And the interesting part of that was it came out to about an average of 16 to 17 years. We did have a pretty nice division of females to males, but more females were represented in this group. And that's a great sign for kind of what we're reading in the books in organizational behavior. And hopefully that's a sign to come where more females are rising up into the ranks, the glass ceilings being broken, and they continue to rise up into the future C-level positions. Another interesting fact, we had representation of Caucasians made up 85%. The interesting piece of that is that wasn't done by selection. It was so happened to be. 69% were married, and 12 of the 13 had kids, for just a little under 2 kids per family. We had about 6 to 7 people reporting to the direct manager. And if you want to move forward, we'll kind of get into some of the questions that we talked about. And that is the first question that I asked, and it kind of was represented throughout the group, was the fact that, what is your leadership style and how has it changed over the course of time of your, between 7 years and 32 years experience. And what we had found was that they all shared with us that leadership style changes over time as they got experience. And when they were getting experience, they oftentimes reverted to telling stories about how they progressed and made a lot of mistakes through their time in their role and still make mistakes today. It was also very noted through all of the interviews, or the majority of the interviews, is that they needed to have a growth mindset in order to stay consistent and grow in time, because as different environments change, the needs of workers change. Just think about what the pandemic has brought along. There's a lot of things that can really drive at the heart of where leadership's needs us to keep that growth mindset. And one of the things that we really took away through the majority of our interviews was the fact that all of the managers and leaders that we spoke with thought about the listening skills as being a very important part of their growth process. And to kind of bring us home, we selected a nice little clip for us to show here that represented very much how someone starts their career as a manager and has been a manager for a long time now, and walks us through that. If you wouldn't mind, if you can move forward and we can listen to Jordan speak about that.
Often everywhere. I promoted at 26 years old into a vice president title and a branch manager. And to be completely frank, I wasn't ready for that position at all. I wasn't ready to be a leader. I think that the thought process then was okay, this is one of our better salespeople. And if this guy can sell, maybe he can teach everybody else to sell. And so that's how I was actually promoted into the game of being a branch manager. But to be a manager, what I thought being a manager is exactly that, just teaching people how to be good salespeople. And what I learned throughout time is management is, at least a good manager, is very little to do with maybe you are a good salesperson or you have attributes of a good salesperson, but it's a lot more about leadership and understanding people. And that's just something I didn't, it was an acquired thing. I don't think that everyone has natural leadership abilities. I had that within me, but I did not realize what it took to be a branch manager and be a good leader. And so over the years, as it's progressed, and age has a lot to do with it as well, or experience, I should say, not age per se, but just being a part of something for a little while, you kind of start to understand to be successful, you have to get buy-in from people. It's more of a people business than anything. Mm-hmm. And The greatest way to inspire people is to find out what is their passion, what is their drivers, which is unique to individuals. And as soon as you can get that and make a connection with people and understand how you can get them to where they need to go, that's when people really buy in and start, being successful and working for you. And so, like in the beginning of my career, it was very much do this. I did this. You can be successful if you do what I did.
And we're turning it over to Lexi, and go ahead and take it away. And thanks for listening to Jordan.
Thanks, Marvin. So when an interviewer has an open position, they really need to analyze their roles and skills, responsibilities that are entitled with that position. And they also need to review the organizational goals and missions that they have or that they're trying to create if they have a possible toxic organization. And they need to carefully analyze those characteristics when they're building their interview questions, getting the candidate to be able to speak so then they have an idea of what their goals are, their skill set, and how they would fit into that culture. As the leader, it's their responsibility to set their team up for success. And that starts by setting their expectations for their candidates while they're in that interview process, so they know fully how to prepare for what they're coming into.
Thanks, Lexi, for sharing that with us. And so another question we asked our interviewees was regarding motivation and what they felt were some of the best ways to motivate employees. And so some key takeaways from my interviews were that in order to effectively motivate employees, you have to kind of first and foremost empower employees so that they have some level of control and autonomy over their decisions in reaching their level of success, right? So another takeaway was that you also have to challenge employees and help them overcome obstacles. Again, giving them that voice that we talked about so that they feel empowered in that process to help them reach their goals. And then also try to, overcome obstacles for them or help them overcome obstacles so that they can reach their goals as well. And then lastly, I think, and this point is usually not thought about in motivation, is that listening is very important. And plays like a huge role in motivation. And so we're all prone to, go, and tell people what to do and give them advice. And while all those things are very important and, obviously have their place in the motivation process, listening is also very important, right? Because that way you not only know what motivates people, but you can also know how to motivate them. And so we play a little clip from one of my interviewees that kind of reiterates that process.
Characteristics I would say stand out to me are being slow to speak and quick to listen. When we do speak, also making sure that it adds value, not just being enamored with the sound of our own voices, right? And then expect nothing less than an energy of lifting up others, and when you do that, that rising tide is going to lift all boats. That doesn't always mean praising people, right? It often comes in the form of challenging them, to reach higher, and to absolutely never accept the status quo.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. And so we're going to talk a little bit about work-life balance. And that's, I think, a subject that we all struggle with, right? So we asked for interviews how they attain a good work-life balance. And again, one of the key takeaways, again, from my interviewee, one of the people I interviewed, he mentioned that he believes in taking kind of like a three-step approach in trying to attain and maintain that work-life balance. So he believed in investing in relationships. And so, when you're about to lead a team, you kind of build those relationships and make sure people can trust you so you can move forward in that process. And then you manage expectations. And so you make sure that your people know, they have the tools, the skills, the education and the training they need to do their jobs. And then you prioritize. And so, when you're with your workers at work, you prioritize work and make sure that's a priority. And then when you're with your friends and family, you make sure that they're a priority in those situations. And so it's very important to be proactive about this dimension. And so it just, we have to realize it doesn't happen by chance, that it's a very intentional process that makes sure, that ensures that we take a very active role in making sure we attain that work-life balance. Because as we know, a lot of studies and research has shown that, the good work-life balance always leads to more job satisfaction and motivation, which in turn, leads to more self-esteem at work and a myriad of other benefits of work. And that in turn, obviously, circles back to, having a happy home life. And so that kind of comes full circle. And so again, I have a clip from one of my interviews that kind of reiterates that point as well.
Probably the first thing that I do is whenever I'm supporting a new group or working with a new group, I invest heavily in those building those relationships and building credibility and trust with them. And then I teach others to do the same. And then once that investment is made, then, you're in a spot to be able to practice sort of managing the expectations of others. And again, I teach others to do the same. For instance, how we communicate with each other, letting them know when you're going to hear back from me and things like that. I currently support a group of several thousand people, and everybody has my phone number and email address. And that can be a little bit off-putting in certain situations. But the group that I work with understands that they're going to hear back from me, usually within 24 hours. They leave very few voicemails, and they don't, pile on with additional messages wondering where I'm at, because they know that I'm going to get back with them. And by doing that, I'm able to create some kind of soft boundaries around my day. I don't get a lot of late night phone calls or anything like that. I don't get a lot of stuff on the weekend or when I'm off, because they understand I will get back to them.
And this was also something that I found very interesting, and that a lot of my interviewees mentioned, was work-life balance. And one thing that I learned is that it looks different for each individual, and it evolves over time just based on different environmental factors. So one example that I was given is that a working mom may have a totally different work-life balance than someone who is a young professional, or someone who is closer to retirement and their children are already out of the house. So it's okay to not have it always be 50-50, and to have it evolve and change over time. And I'd like to share a video that I had from one of my interviewees, and then I'll pick back up on the rest of my points.
Using my team to, the best of their abilities, really managing my time, and then sticking to my own boundaries. I had to learn that the hard way over the years, but, recognizing that I need to prioritize my personal life as much as I prioritize work. Not saying one is more important than the other, but the same effort that I give to work, I give to my personal life to really create that balance.
So yeah, going based off of that clip from one of my interview videos, what she did mention that I cut out of that clip is that it's often a huge challenge, and it's something that has to be learned over time. It's not something that comes easily or naturally to everyone. So you do really have to prioritize that work-life balance. And some of the keys, like she mentioned, to success in work-life balance include time management, just being on top of your time, being able to rely on your team and delegate those responsibilities, and also setting boundaries for yourself, which was mentioned in the previous video as well. And it's important to prioritize work and home life, even though one isn't more important than the other. So again, just prioritizing work when you're at work, and prioritizing your home life when you are at home.
Using my team.
So another question that we asked our managers was how they deal with conflict. And one of the managers I asked had a really interesting take and mentioned that, while conflict can be really intimidating or scary to a lot of leaders and managers in situations, and, conflict being, a disagreement between two or more people, it can actually be super valuable if handled correctly. As an organization, they should all be working towards a similar common goal. In healthcare, they could be working towards, giving the best care and health to all of their clients. And so a good leader needs to come in, and they're all having different ways of achieving that goal. They're just coming at it from different angles. And so a strong leader needs to be able to come in and, de-escalate the situation and have great communication to, bring out the best ideas in these situations.
And the final piece that I would like to share is something that I learned about performance evaluation. So I have a short clip from an interview video, and then I will share kind of what we learned from these interviews.
I think it's vitally important, and it's not just the performance evaluation, it's a whole performance management system. So people want to know what they're expected to do. They want to know goals. And then I believe that most people want to be able to work towards those goals in their own way, and have you as their leader guide them in saying, yes, this is the right direction, or no, let's tweak it here or there. But without actually communicating expectations, without allowing an employee to understand what their goals, have input on their goals, and understand what the company is, department, team, what we're all working together, and people are like, well, what am I supposed to be doing, right? What is the end result?
So going and elaborating on that further, a lot of my interviewees touched on making more contact than just the once per year formal performance evaluation. So really having one-on-one connections with their employees and touching base frequently, whether that's bi-weekly or monthly, or just on a day-to-day basis, having that that time with your employees and being able to know what their individual goals are for themselves, so that you can communicate that, and they can help set their own goals that then you can align with the overall company's goals. There's no one size fits all magic nice little bow that works for everyone, so you do have to create those unique goals. And again, that's where having the employee have an input in creating their own goals comes into play. And it's, again, just knowing what the individual's goals are, and then how that can align with the company's goals. And like the interview video showed, people want to know what they're expected to do, and communication is key. So it's important to meet more frequently, so that you can let someone know if they are meeting those goals, or if there's something that needs to be adjusted, so that at the formal evaluation process at the end of the year, they are not completely caught off guard by the fact that they didn't quite get where they were going. So it gives you a better chance of success that way.
Right. I appreciate, all the participation here from Sandy, Lexus, Allison, and did an excellent job. I think the videos captured some of the essence of some of the questions that we had asked as a group. So in conclusion, we tackled leadership style and the qualities and how that changed over the life of the kind of the manager. From a cultural fit and hiring perspective, we got a good understanding that balancing that out with the company and what they want, and also finding out what's important to the individual person is essential, and trying to make sure we get the right fit for both parties involved. And through those onboarding processes and managing people, the motivating and coaching piece that was shared, throughout the presentation really has a resounding overall positive impact when done properly. And when you think about the work-life balance, in one of my interviews, she had just had a baby about 4 weeks, prior to my interview, and she came back early, and she says, I don't think I'm the best person for work-life balance. I'm still working on it now that I've added a newborn. So work-life balance continues to flex as the pandemic has, created many flexible working environments, and now that you can see companies are making shifts to that, and kind of bringing it all home. Employees and organizations grow when you have an ongoing performance evaluation process. The days are gone where hopefully where you just get one interaction with your manager a year. I think we've all been in that situation, and I know I worked for many companies that do quarterly, and each time you meet with your manager is an opportunity to have a give-get situation and improve and grow. So with that, thank you for your time this evening, and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.